Hi everybody, this is Max Farrow, and this is Trading Live with Max and trading 5-minute trades. Now, if you guys are here with me right now, you're probably in this max offer deal. If not, then go to the website, go to Getting Started, hit the Nadex button, put in max offer, all one word, into the system if you want to be a part of this program. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be trading in an advanced state of mind for the 5-minute signals that we have. This is the WB version, which means web-based platform that I built using some charting systems, some 1-minute data that progresses every 1 minute. So just keep that in mind. All this data in here is very powerful, but it changes every 1 minute. Okay, so it's not per tick data. So keep that in mind first off. So basically, what do I do when I start my day in the morning? And right now it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm making this video so for tomorrow morning, you can, if you're starting out and you're just getting this video, you're seeing this later in the afternoon, you could start out. But you start out in your time, whatever time it is, okay? Now, I choose, because I'm good enough and I know these 4 pairs, to use all 4, okay? But in some cases, you may just want to use 1 or 2, right? But the progress is still the same. The process of setup is still the same. The first thing I do is that as you first come to the site and you get into the 4 square, the little slider button, I move it to the right. And then what I do is I click in this gray bar here and I use the arrows on my keyboard to move it over, right? So slide to the right, click in that gray bar, it makes the active window happen. And then I use my arrows, you can hear that, I'm using my arrows back and forth, okay? And it moves over on the slide. Too many times you try to click and drag, it might be a little tricky, but this is the only little nuance, right? The 3 or 4 components that are on here, of course, we have the support and resistance, we have the MACD, we have an arrow, and a few things. If you're using a mouse wheel, you have an opportunity here, right? Now, what I look for is, first thing I'm looking for, as always, right, is the trend. First thing I'm looking for is decide the trend. And in this case, we decided the trend is an uptrend, right, to a degree. Right, we have a little bit of stale happening here right now because look what happened. Defining the trend can be a little bit confusing sometimes. So how do we do that? Well, what I do is I use the mouse wheel and I pull back just a little bit just to kind of see, where's this in. Now, overall, it looks like from bottom to top, oh, it's an uptrend. But you have to look a little bit closer than you normally would anything else. What you're looking for is that when these higher highs happen, if you get one that happens a little lower, but eventually works out. Now, but this lower low hit, right? So this could mean that it's becoming indecisive, or it's what we call consolidating, okay? So in consolidation, the pairs kind of stay in this range. You see how that's kind of really staying? It's not really being decisive to be in that. So this is one of those things, if you can't determine the current trend, okay, over the last 20, 30 bars, and you see this starting to unfold where it's really not being decisive, that the higher highs happen and the lower and the higher lows happen. See, so this part got broken right here, right? When that, instead of it being a higher low, it was a lower low. So it kind of tells us this is a no bueno trade, right? So anything that's happening on this, we can't decipher the trend. If we can't decipher the trend, we wait until we can decipher it, right? Make sense? Okay, good. So let's get back over to the other one. So if that one won't do it, then I come over to this one and I pull back a little bit and I see that we've started to take a dip in this trend and we've broken past the support zone. So we can't really see one in this one either. So I float down to the next one, go to the right, click on the little bar, move over, pull back just a little bit. I'm kind of looking at seeing that this market is also at a point of consolidation. And this may happen during this time of day. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The markets are progressing for their end of the day move. You got about 3 hours after the London close. This is only the last 20, 30 minutes, but if we really pull back, you would see that if you had started to look right around, about an hour ago, you would have had some good movement, that you would have had an uptrend. You could have started deciphering the uptrend right around in this area, and you would have had some pretty good moves and some good wins at that point, right? But again, this is all about now. So I come over, I move my thing over to the right, and I start looking for my trend. Now, in this particular case with the USD CAD, I can see that the trend is getting established. Higher high, lower highs. Okay, this is really the low right here, so it hasn't really broken that yet. This could even be considered the low right here, that point, where that support line is. So if it comes back off and bounces up, then I got something good, okay? And I would see that if I had an up arrow at this point, because once you decipher the trend, this is important. We get the, let me do that. One, we get the trend, right? And if we can figure out the trend, it's an uptrend, okay? So that means that every up arrow is a continuance, right? Continuing of the trend. And every down arrow is a pullback, okay? And this little pullback that happens should bounce off and go back up again. So the very first arrow after a pullback is the best arrow to go with. So once we've considered the trend, we then have to consider support and resistance once we get an indication of that arrow happening, right? We know that we're in an uptrend, so any arrow after a little pullback that's pointing up could be a decent arrow to be in that trade with. Now, once we do get that, very quickly we have to start to decipher at what price now do we want to use that, right? And what I do is that I use the fact of it, the trend itself, the highs and the lows, to kind of help me with that, which is also a version of support and resistance. You could use the support and resistance lines, as you can kind of see here, as a guide as well. But this is only temporary guide, because once you get over to Nadex, the price structure that's there in the statement might be higher. So we're going to have to add a couple of pips to this, right? Now, we didn't get an up arrow in the signification for this next trade bit, okay? And if anything else, we really, because we couldn't decipher a trend here, this up arrow really didn't do much for us, okay? And the same thing here. Now, we have a nice little up arrow that happened 5 minutes ago with this, but it would have probably yielded out something good if we had deciphered this as a positive trend. But because there was some movement in this area and then none after that, just kind of consolidated this in this area, I'm not really looking to make any trades. USD JPY is really the only one that has possible availability to be able to do that over the next half hour. But again, it also has started to look like it's breaking the rule of trend here, right? Because here's a up, here's a higher low, higher low, higher low, and it's sort of coming down now. And I think what will end up happening is that we might get maybe a little drop in an arrow and go. But again, I'm just speculating. I'm hoping that this little curl right here is what's going to bring us back up and bounce off of this level here and go. Okay, because this is really sort of just kind of held out there with some hits in there, but nothing really serious in a support resistance area. Okay, now again, studying the market like this, looking at what's an actual trend and not a trend, it takes time. It's a creative process. You've got to kind of work with that, because what I'm looking for is out of the next 60 minutes to an hour, or however long I study the market for, I'm looking for what comes to fruition and what is perfection out of that. And perfection is the following. 1, I want to be able to decipher the trend. 2, I want to make sure that my indication is solid, right? That I have a handful of up arrows and then a pullback, and then of course another up arrow in a very early trend. Something that's done that all day long might be fizzling out at the top of a line, but once I get a halfway trend, I might look at these arrows that are going up and then a couple that are going down for pullback, and this first arrow. This is what I'm looking for. I'm hunting out that boy. Now when that happens, okay, I immediately want to look at support and resistance level where that arrow is at. So if this arrow comes up, but yet I have a resistance arrow, or I have a resistance line right here, I may not be able to get into this trade decently enough. That, or I have to give myself a good margin for error, which we call a floating trade, right? We back it down a little bit and we put a working order on in case it gets pushed back down, gets close and gets picked up, right? It's a tactic I use for the dailies. But the problem is that sometimes, you know, if the support resistance is underneath and I got a lot of room for movement, because you know, maybe we're getting here and we're looking to be up in this area, then this is a great trade to get off, right? So I've deciphered the trend, it's an up. I see the support resistance area is free and open, yay for me. Third is that I look on price on Nadex, and as long as I got a good price or I can put a working order on at that pricing structure, maybe I just missed it, I can put a working order on that I keep down to the last 30 seconds of the trade. No more, no less than that. I usually sometimes will pull it off in the last minute on a working order, so keep that in mind. And then 4, I just wait to the end, wait to end, WTE. You know, wait to close. Don't even mess with anything else. Don't try scalping or speculating and all that, right? And this is the most important part, is hunting this out. If I can hunt this out and make this happen, I may get 1, 2, maybe even 3 trades a day. And to have such a high rate of success on these, you know, and plus I'm getting between 28 or 25 to $35 per contract, okay? I'm making about $90 a day, right around in this area, 90 to 105, depending, maybe, you know, I say what, between 50 and $105 a day, right? Between 50 and 100 a day. Now, before you go off and go, well, that's not a lot of money, Max. You know, if I only trade 4 days a week, I'm only making $400 a week. That might to you be the golden. You might be making $1,600 a month at that point. But I'm only talking about trading one contract at a time. This is CVG. Okay, you guys heard me say that before. So that's my beginning value of setup. In most cases, most of you don't take that time. You just see an arrow, oh, go for it, Max says to go. No, the arrow is set as an indicator itself. So I hope you get something from this. I'm waiting for that setup. If I do get a setup that's pretty good, sometimes I can go down some of these other pairs, but unless I've really used them, like I know that these setups happen at this time, right? But I don't know about the Great Britain Pound JPY. I don't know where that's going to be sitting at in its world, right? Again, this is a little bit of consolidation. You know, we get this consolidating mark that happened in this area just for a little bit, and then it started to dissect itself down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, because we had a high low, right? Lower highs, lower lows. This one's really close. This arrow is for pullback, and then maybe if we get maybe you might have another one, as long as it doesn't go higher than this. If it closes out higher than this, then the trend is broken, right? The direction is broken, the trend, and I need to have it reestablish. Okay, so established, fell down a little bit here, and now it's going, right? Let's see, what was that bell for? Let's see if there was anything that just came out for what we're looking for. All right, USD JPY did not mature, did not come out on that process. Maybe one of the other ones did. USD CAD. Yep, there it is. But you can kind of even see that more consolidation happened here on this one as well. Kind of stagnating out, not really giving me high-low depiction. And it's the same thing. I can go through each one of these and do that with, and have a look to see where they're at. And I wouldn't suggest doing this because you're going to end up missing something. You can't be overall valued on every single one. I like the 4 square. I just work with these. I rarely would trade the other ones because I know how these operate. All right, keep that in mind. I'm Max. This is Dex. I look forward to talking to you again. If you have any questions, if you want to sign up for this process, hit the Getting Started button and get into this. Use the code MAXOFFER to be on board. We're looking for other people to help us with this. You could end up getting free systems after a month and a half learning how to do this and helping us train other people to do these. But that's what we're looking for. All right, I'm Max. This is Dex. See you next time. And as always, trade well.